I think we all have a story. And how did we get here with the Krach Institute? So let me just do that. It's in 3 parts. The first part is pre-government, then during government, and then the Krach Institute. So I was born in Rocky River, Ohio, small town. My dad had a 5-person machine shop. In the good times and the tough times, it was just me and him. My mom used to teach physical education and walk across the street and coach the boys' 9th grade wrestling team. My dad's dream was that I'd go off and get some college knowledge and become an engineer. We grow his factory to about 10 people. Well, I went off to Purdue and actually never looked back. I ended up getting a scholarship from General Motors that put me through there and also Harvard Business School. And it was about that time my dad started calling it Generous Motors. I returned, got involved in building a joint venture in the robotics area. We ended up being the largest robot company in the world today. And then headed out to Silicon Valley, caught my lunch with the first startup. I'll never forget it. The CEO, I went out there as number 2 person, CEO, and on that first day, the president and CEO said, "Keith, this is what I want you to say at the next board meeting." And I go, "Maria, I will not do that. That would be lying." And I got that deep feeling in the pit of my stomach. I just made the biggest mistake of my life. See, I was the youngest vice president at General Motors at age 27. I was on the fast track. I probably had as good a chance as anybody to be that CEO. Now, just out of pure pride, I reckon I can admit now that I wasn't going back. So I ended up leaving there about 9 months later when the CEO kept calling me up when my first son was being born. And wanted me to, IBM, who was a big investor, wanted me to miss the birth of my child. I finally, after the 3rd time, told her no way, told her to do something that's anatomically impossible to do. I said I quit. And that taught me a great lesson. Because all these things that I grew up with in Rocky River, experienced at Purdue and at General Motors, thing called a set of values and integrity and trust, it was always so close to my face. I just took it for granted. I made a vow after that. Any company I'd be associated with, any organization, that would be first and foremost. Well, I ended up hooking up with 3 PhD scientists from the IBM research labs. We created a category called mechanical design synthesis, changed the way engineering's done today. My spacecraft design engineer at JPL uses it now. And then that team went off, formed Ariba. We invented B2B commerce. Now, 3.7 trillion goes through the Ariba network on an annual basis, more than Amazon, eBay, and Alibaba combined. Then after that, it's kind of like, what are you going to do next? Well, I had the honor of being asked to serve on the board of trustees at Purdue. A couple years later, they selected me as the chairman. Did that, and then all of a sudden this thing called DocuSign popped up. And they wanted me to go run this thing. And I said, man, I don't want to run it. You know, when you're a CEO of a public company, back then there was only 20 people there, but I said, you know, anytime you're a CEO, you're under the desk in a fetal position at least once a month, guaranteed once a quarter. I didn't want to do that. Well, finally, my wife talked me into it because she said, you know, you're so enthused when you go there, you're even more when you come back. Did that. And we built that global powerhouse and turned the company name into a verb. Now, 1 billion DocuSign users around the world, 1 million customers. So about 2017, we were in every major country. At that time, we had about 500 million users. And the only country we weren't in was China. So I decided to go to China for a 2-week listening trip. Now, I've been going to China since 1981. I'm a lover of Chinese history, the culture, people, certainly the food. Even my little twins, who are 12 now, back then, sent them to the first Chinese-American school, total immersion, in San Francisco. Now, I went over there, and this time it was different. I could see how General Secretary Xi amped up China's economic competition to a new form of techno-economic warfare. I saw their drone swarm technology. They were telling me to download 10 cent literally every hour. I met with 7 of the 9 top Politburo members. And the first time I heard about the One Belt, One Road, it looked like a military supply chain to me. And as I'm flying back on the plane, I had my wife with me. I said, you know, all I know is the guys with the best technology win the war, and they're up to no good. And I said, I wonder what the guys in Washington are doing about this. Now, see, I've never been involved in government, politics. I always ran my companies politically neutral. So I went out to Washington. I met the only person I knew, and that was VP Pence. Because you see, Purdue's in Indiana, and he was the governor. He took Mitch Daniels' place, who was the guy I hired to be president of Purdue at the time when I was chairman. So I go out and I see VP Pence. He puts his arm around me, introduces to his chief of staff, and he says, yeah, this is Krach. I wanted him to do his 3rd term as chairman of the trustees at Purdue, but oh no, he's got to run some little software company. How's it going, Keith? Well, Mr. Vice President, we went public a few months ago. It's worth about $15 billion. And I said, but I'm here to talk about China. And I told him what I saw. And see, growing up in the Midwest, I could see how China's weapons of mass production had gutted the heart of our economic engine, companies like my father's. I could also see when I was a VP at General Motors, when you build a plant over there, you're not just giving them your blueprints. You're teaching them your process engineering, training their people. And I also had our intellectual property stolen at Ariba by Alibaba. And I told him all that, and he looks at me and he goes, have you ever thought about serving your country? I go, well, that's a dream I never knew I had. And I go, it'd be an honor. He goes, can you move? I go, I can move anywhere in the world. That just kind of sounded macho. That's why I said that. and that probably the first decision without asking my wife, but fortunately she went to Georgetown Law, so I knew it was okay. Maybe Washington wasn't a bad place. Now, the one thing that made me reluctant was, could I make a difference? Because you hear about all this stuff in government. Oh, man, it takes forever to get anything done. But I figured I didn't want to be looking at myself in the mirror when I'm 80 years old, shaving, going, coulda, woulda, shoulda. So I get nominated, then I go out and I visit John Duncan. He's here somewhere. And he answers me, he goes, you got to get ready for your confirmation meeting. He goes, here's 3 notebooks. I go, oh, that's great. I went to a Catholic school. I can memorize. I will memorize these 3 notebooks. And one notebook was for every country, every region. The other was for every industry, because I was nominated to run U.S. economic diplomacy as Undersecretary of State. And then the other one was, here's the key initiatives. And all I could see was China, 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 tech, 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 China, China. And it's like, who owns this? Well, it ended up that I got the opportunity to own that. And I'll never forget getting ready for that Senate Confirmation Committee meeting. Our Chief of Legislative Affairs goes, oh, you have a big strategic advantage going to your confirmation hearing. I go, yes, I certainly do. What is it? She goes, nobody knows who you are. I go, I always knew that would come in handy. But that was actually a great experience. And I shared with him one of the things that you saw in that video, where I talked about our rivals are playing a 4-dimensional game of diplomatic, economic, and military chess. And at the crossroads, by the way, is technology. And they do it with very little respect for human rights, the planet, sovereignty of nations, rule of law, property. And, you know, the thing that was echoing in the back of my head was my dad would always say, you know, it's about American enterprise. We're free traders. But when somebody comes to the market, doesn't play by the rules, the market's no longer free. It's a fool's market, and you got to do something about it. And I was asked by Senator Coons, so what would be your strategy to combat China's economic aggression? I said, well, I would harness U.S.'s 3 biggest areas of competitive advantage by rallying and unifying our allies and our partners and leveraging the innovation and resource of the private sector and amplifying the moral high ground of democratic values. Well, I guess they must have liked that because I got unanimously confirmed. And in between those sessions, everybody tells you in Washington, if you want a friend, get a dog. Well, I already had a dog. So I brought in 12 trusted entrepreneurs, results-oriented execs, technologists from Silicon Valley, and a dean of engineering at Purdue, Mong, who's now the president. And, I'll never forget, it was between that nomination confirmation time, Mong came out to see me. And I said, Mong, I need a favor from you. I've got to hire an assistant secretary of ocean environment and science, and a science and tech person who's going to run that for us at the State Department. I go, I know you guys travel in packs. So can you find somebody for me? He goes, yeah, Keith, I'll look. Well, about 2 days later, gives me a call, and he goes, Keith, I know you're looking at some great candidates, but I want to put my hat in the ring. Now, I nearly fell on the floor. He was in the middle of a $2 billion capital campaign. And I asked him, I said, what's Mitch going to say about that? He goes, I don't know. What are you going to tell him? I said, well, I'm going to tell him 3 things. Number 1, we need you. I mean, Mong, you got your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD in electrical engineering. You wrote your thesis on 5G. You're a 3-time entrepreneur. You won the Waterman Award at Princeton. We need you. The second reason is that, Mong, I think you're going to be the next president of Purdue. As a matter of fact, the first time I met you, I called up Mitch at midnight and said, you found your next president at Purdue. And, Mitch's greatest experience to be the most innovative president in America, which Wall Street Journal dubbed him, was not his time as governor of Indiana, but it was actually being director of OMB. I said, Mong needs that experience. The third thing I'm going to tell him is that, look, Mong has lived the American dream. He grew up in China, and he wants to pay back his country. Are you going to rob him of that? So that was the whammo. And we were fortunate to get Mong. So I get sworn in on a Thursday, or confirmed on a Thursday, sworn in on Friday. On Saturday, I'm off on a plane. I go to Bahrain, which was kind of the first opening of the Abraham Accords. I gave the opening keynote speech, Make No Small Plans, was my thesis. And then off to the G20 in Osaka. I got to see face-to-face General Secretary Xi. I got to see Putin. And then we went off right on the border of North Korea. Came back that Sunday night, and I go, wow, that was a great week. I wonder what we're going to do this week. So I have lunch with Pompeo, and he goes, you know what I do? I go, yes, sir, I do. You're dealing with North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, the nuke and the coup guys. That's right. He goes, I want you to take China. I got it, sir. Divide and conquer. I understand. And so my mission was to develop and operationalize a global economic security strategy to drive economic growth and maximize national security and combat China's economic aggression. So that's when I brought in these skilled guys and combined them with some of the greatest career people alive. And by the way, I thank those guys for their service every time, the civil service and the foreign service officers. And so anyway, so we begin writing this global economic security strategy. And probably after the first few months, we went to go visit Senator Young and Senator Schumer with a proposal, because big part of that global economic security strategy was obviously technology innovation. And we said, we need to write a bill for $200 billion for R&D, and we'll get the private sector to match it 3-for-1. That was the Endless Frontier Act that ended up being merged in the Chips and Science Act. Well, that was kind of getting going. And then I'm showing Pompeo the global economic security strategy. He goes, hey, this is brilliant. Now, when are you going to effing do something? Now, when somebody says something like that to me, that really inspires me a lot. Tell me I can't do something, I'm all in. And it was funny because I said, you always yell at me. I always talk to my wife. I go, whenever I talk to you, you just yell at me. And you see, I haven't had a boss for 30 years. I think I kind of enjoy it. And he goes, Krach, you brought in, you alone, you brought in the 5 smartest people in government. I go, well, thank you very much, sir. That's the highest compliment I could ever have. For the record, it's 12. And anyway, that's just one of those things where you got to swagger on out of there. So about that time, this whole 5G situation was going on. Both sides of the aisle were banging the table and going, we got to stop. Huawei, China's most important company, the backbone of their surveillance state, was they were going to run the table all around the world. So we ended up getting and all previous efforts had failed because our government was going around banging tables like the ugly Americans saying, don't buy Huawei because of our national security. We're not going to share it with you. We got those authorities. The first thing I said is, hey, why don't we just treat foreign governments and these telco companies like a customer? And the customer is always right. Nobody wants to be told what to do. And you need a value proposition. And that's when we built this thing called the Clean Network Alliance of Democracies, which in less than a year comprised of 60 countries, 2/3 of the world's global GDP, 200 telcos, a host of industry-leading companies to defeat that master plan. And that whole thing was based on on trust. Because when I went into government, in my first 60 bilateral meetings with my foreign counterparts, economic ministers, finance ministers, foreign ministers, I would get around to ask them the question, how's your relationship with China? They go, well, they're a really important trading partner. And then they look both ways like somebody was there, and they go, but we don't trust them. Now that rang bells in my head because I would always stand up in front of all our employees or at our user conference at DocuSign and say, we're not in the software business, we're in the trust business. We deal with people's most important documents. Those are the ones you sign. You do business with people you trust, you partner with people you trust, you buy from people you trust, you love people you trust. And that's what we made our strategic position, was trust. And created this thing called the trust doctrine that was based on democratic values. So we did exactly what harnessed those 3 things. Well, along the way, I think we kind of upset China a little bit. Our opening gambit for the Clean Network was we affectionately called the 5G trifecta, where we onshored the most important foreign company to United States national security. That's TSMC. We actually do that in 2 weeks' time, $12 billion, largest onshoring. We also announced closing loopholes on Huawei's semiconductor sanctions, and then we announced a thing called the Clean Path. And that was kind of the opening trifecta. And see, one thing we knew is that in a rapidly growing market, everybody wants to go with a leader. And leadership is not determined by size. It's determined by momentum. And they had all the momentum. So our job was to take their momentum and replace it with ours. And that's exactly what we did. And at the end of the day, it created a model, a bipartisan model that represented a bridge between Democratic and Republican administration. And the other thing, clearly, that I learned in those meetings with my foreign counterparts is the elephant in the room was China's intimidation, retaliation, and retribution. And that's where the Clean Network came in because it's a security blanket. There's strength in numbers, there's power in unity and solidarity. Well, that was a great experience. About 2 minutes after my term finished, I was declared an enemy of the state by China. My whole family was sanctioned, which I reckon was a badge of honor. I was asked about that on TV the day before it happened. They said, Keith, you think you might get sanctioned? I go, oh, I'm sure I am. And I will not bend a knee to Emperor Xi. Well, right about that time, Mung had gone back to Purdue, and I'm sure he'll say a few words about that. And see, Mung was focused on this whole area of tech diplomacy, and we were too. Basically, people give us credit for inventing it, but it's pretty simple. It's just taking technology expertise, high-tech strategies, and foreign policy tools based upon this trust doctrine. That's really the practice. And that's where we formed the Krach Institute for Technology, and founded on the principle that technology must advance freedom.